Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and today we're down in the fish room because I am trying to get caught up on water changes. And my 75-gallon Nano is well overdue for a really significant water change. It also needs some plant attention, and I'm developing a bunch of hair algae. Now, ever since I changed the lights down here in the fish room, I've been having some weird algae issues, and I think I need to do some fine-tuning to my light schedule. But the plants all look great, so I'm just going to go through and manually remove it, and we'll take a look at the fish and talk a little bit about what I'm doing. Now, it's probably been 2 weeks since this aquarium has had any water change at all, and that's because even though it has a bunch of fish, I consider it to be relatively lightly stocked, and it's one that I can ignore when I'm getting ready to travel. But the direct result of doing so means I'm getting all sorts of wonky algae that I need to deal with. Right now I'm just taking my aquascaping tongs and swirling it through the water to sort of capture the hair algae and pull it off. It gets entwined in all of the little plants, the wood, and sort of everywhere. Generally it infiltrates the moss. So I'm just going to remove as much as I can while I'm draining this aquarium. I'm going to drain it about 50% and then refill it. For now, I'm not worrying about siphoning the substrate, though when I'm done this manual removal of the hair algae, I probably will grab a bucket and do some actual gravel vacuuming. Algae comes for numerous reasons. It can be your light, but it always ends up being sort of an imbalance of some sort of nutrient. And I have a feeling that this thing's just sort of out of whack right now. There's an excess of some sort of nutrient. Since I'm not dosing CO2, all my plants are relatively slow growing, and I have the enriched substrate. So I'm going to try and remove as much of it as possible and get myself back on track with the maintenance routine of this aquarium. It is pretty typical when you start skipping water changes to have problems like this. And in my experience at least, I find that the easiest way to deal with them is to just get back on track. Really, this is a pretty minor issue in this aquarium. Some of these anubias don't look super awesome. There appears to be a little bit of brush algae starting here, so I'm going to remove that as well. But again, as always, the fish look amazing, so I'm not really stressing too hard right now. Some people like to use a toothbrush to manually remove hair algae. I find just wrapping it around my pinchers here works great. Again, you just kind of peek through all the plants, find the hair algae, grab it with the ends, and then sort of twist it around them, and then that makes it easier to remove it. All in all, I think this aquarium is quite successful. The fish in this are some of my favorites of all time. I do want to get some botanicals for in here. If you guys have any suggestions of specific types you think I should use for the stocking in here, let me know. I'm thinking about getting some of the pods and things like that in order to make it a more natural environment for the apistogrammas that I added. I'm going to pull out this anubias and just give it a once over. It's got a lot of these old damaged leaves that just need to go. Decaying plant matter can also contribute to issues with algae, so I'm going to try and make sure that as much of what's in here as possible is really pretty darn healthy. Now the buses all look pretty amazing, and overall I'm pretty happy with this aquarium. It looks as though my narrow leaf that I had placed in here really didn't do super awesome though. You win some, you lose some. Also, somehow I managed to get moss in here even though I didn't actually place any in here. You can see it growing on the wood here. as well as up the back wall back here, which is kind of neat, though again, I didn't want it there, so how it ended up there is beyond me. Now, I used to have pennywort in this aquarium, and I ended up pulling it out because it was just not thriving. And a lot of my planted tanks are sort of trial and error to see what's going to work with what I'm providing. Everything else in here looks pretty good. The crypts are doing really well in this aquarium. The parva's growing exceptionally slowly, which is to be expected. Alright, so I've gotten all the hair algae, so I'm just going to continue to water change, spot clean, and rinse out my sponge filters, and then we'll fill her back up. One of the things that I always do when I'm doing water changes is to see how dirty my sponge filters are just by sticking the siphon tube into it. I can see from doing so that I've probably discovered the issues and reasons for getting algae because these suckers are filthy. And I think it's probably been about 6 weeks since I really gave them a good cleaning. So I'm going to go ahead and siphon off as much of the detritus as I can before lifting them out of the aquarium. Otherwise it'll make quite a mess. And again, I just press the siphon into the sponge filter so that it collects any of that mulm or debris that's going to come out of them before I lift them out. And then I'll rinse them in my bucket here or in my sink and put them back. But I think it's probably pretty likely that the reason I'm getting algae is because there's so much accumulated mung in these filters. One of the things that I really like about using sponge filters is that I can grow plants actually on them. And this one has a bunch of Java fern and some subwassertang growing out of it. And I just think it's kind of cool, neat way to make it look a little less grody. So I just rinse them in the bucket, squeeze them out until as much of the water's out of them as possible. Place them back. And see, now I've made quite a mess. But we'll be doing this big water change for a while, so it's fine. So again, when I'm investigating a problem in an aquarium, I try and start with the most obvious things first. I look at my filtration, I look at my water changes, and see if anything there is out of whack, because the vast majority of the time, issues with our aquariums are user error. Often it comes from overfeeding, ill maintaining, or just being lazy and not cleaning filters like in this situation. I have a feeling by doing this big 50% water change, the manual removal, and cleaning my filters, this aquarium will be back in shape in no time. I'm going to go ahead and finish this water change, we'll fill her up, and then we'll take a look together. While we're waiting for that tank to clear up, you can see Captain is doing so much better. Just almost back to his old self, thank goodness. You can see his colors are all fired up. He keeps tearing himself up on that one last piece of wood left in the aquarium, so I'm probably going to have to pull that too. But I'm just so relieved that we were able to save him because he is truly a special fish. Now, who knows how much time he has left, but I'm just glad that whatever he was struggling with, we've been able to address and make him feel good and comfortable enough again to do his cranky pants dance. What a goofball. I'm going to go ahead and feed these guys. As you can see, the aquarium's still a bit stirred up, but despite how absolutely filthy those sponge filters were, it's clearing up really quickly. It's only been about 2 minutes. And this time tomorrow, it's going to be absolutely sparkling. And I'll keep you guys posted on whether or not that hair algae continues to be a problem, or if just simply getting back on track with my maintenance, especially of those filters, it does the trick. As always, let me know your comments down below. How do you deal with things like hair algae? And if you guys could do me a favor and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of these videos, and give this video a thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Apparently it makes a real difference with YouTube. Again, these striped guys are the Nanostomus sp, or the barred pencilfish. So you can see an otocinclus there. And then there are a ton of green neons, as well as some Opistogramma cockatoides triple red, and some Coreodoris CW010, or laser cories. All the fish in this aquarium are just absolute stunners, and it's one of my favorites, which is why I could really kick myself in the pants for neglecting it like I have. We'll check back in on this tank in a day or two, and you guys can see the difference just a good water change and filter cleaning can make.